Thank you for joining us today. As promised, we're doing our best to share information about the recently enacted Continued Assistance Act as quickly as we can. We know that even the smallest update may bring some assurance to the Oregonians who are relying on these benefits. Last week, we joined several informational calls with the U.S. Department of Labor, where we received updated information on PEUC, the extension program for people that used up their regular unemployment benefits. People eligible for PEUC will receive up to an additional 11 weeks of benefits, as well as the $300 FPUC benefit through the week ending March 13th, 2021. People who had funds remaining on their prior PEUC claims before the CARES Act expired should continue filing their weekly claims like normal. They will see the additional 11 weeks automatically added to their claims. People who were receiving extended benefits or EB when the CARES Act expired will need to use up their EB claim first, after which they will be moved back to PEUC to receive benefits under that program until it ends on March 13th. We've been able to continue paying PEUC and PUA benefits without interruption for people who had weeks remaining on their claims before the Continued Assistance Act became law. For other people seeking PEUC and PUA benefits who are waiting to receive their benefits under the new law, including those who didn't have any weeks remaining on their prior claims, we are working to get them paid absolutely as quickly as we can. We have more information and answers to frequently asked questions about PEUC, as well as other information about the Continued Assistance Act on our website. Please visit unemployment.oregon.gov/CAA to see that additional information. There is a new component created by the Continued Assistance Act called the phase-out. It allows people who have a balance remaining on their PEUC or PUA claim after March 13th of 2021 and who receive benefits for the week ending March 13th to claim the remaining benefits through the week ending April 10th. We're still receiving additional guidance from the Department of Labor on the Continued Assistance Act, and we expect to be able to share more detailed information about updates to the PUA program this week. The Continued Assistance Act did stop tens of thousands of Oregonians from losing their benefits and provided a much-needed safety net. There are, however, several changes, and in some cases, some restrictions on how these new benefits are available. The Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program is a weeks-based program as opposed to a funds-based program, meaning that claimants can only receive up to the maximum number of weeks of benefits, even if they would otherwise have funds remaining on their claim. Although the Continued Assistance Act has been described as an 11-week extension of benefits, the U.S. Department of Labor has informed us that the maximum number of PUA weeks available under the new legislation is a total of 50 weeks. The Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program originally started out providing up to 39 weeks of benefits. In Oregon, when the High Extended Benefits, or HEB, program became available, that 39 weeks increased to 46 weeks of PUA benefits being available. The recent enactment of the Continued Assistance Act raises that maximum now to 50 weeks. There are limits to how far back people can backdate their PUA claims. PUA applications for benefits submitted on or after December 27th of last year, the date the Continued Assistance Act became law, can only be backdated as far as the week ending December 12th, 2020. We anticipate being able to soon provide information about the documentation that people seeking PUA benefits are now required to provide under federal law. Some people have already given us information, and we'll review that to see if it meets the federal requirements. If so, they will not need to send in anything else. Others will have 90 days to provide the information from when we notify them of what's required. We will soon be notifying PUA claimants of this change and of the 90-day timeline. If they don't send in the documentation after 90 days, their claims will be denied, and any benefits paid since December 27th will be considered an overpayment that they will have to pay back. I've talked a little bit previously about the new program, the Mixed Earner Unemployment Compensation, or MEUC program, which will be quite challenging for us to implement. As a reminder, people receiving regular unemployment benefits and who can document at least $5,000 in self-employment income will receive an additional $100 per week on top of the other benefits they receive. Receiving MEUC benefits may impact someone's eligibility for other programs like Oregon Health Plan or the Children's Health Insurance Program, CHIP. We want to make sure Oregonians have all the information they need when making a decision about applying for MEUC. We're still waiting for more details from the U.S. Department of Labor about the MEUC program, and we don't anticipate being able to pay these benefits until March. When we do pay the benefits, it will retroactively cover all of the weeks covered by the program. We'll be having our next unemployment insurance webinar focusing on the latest information that we've received about the Continued Assistance Act. While we're still waiting for more details from the Department of Labor, we want to share what information we have as soon as we know it. This next webinar is scheduled for 1 p.m. this Thursday, January 14th, and simultaneous interpretation will be available in Mandarin, Russian, Vietnamese, and Spanish. And on Thursday, January 28th, we will be hosting a Spanish language webinar on the Continued Assistance Act. People can register for our upcoming webinars and watch recordings of prior webinars by visiting unemployment.oregon.gov/webinars. As a reminder, all unemployment benefits are considered taxable income, and next week we will begin mailing out Form 1099-G for 2020 to everyone who received unemployment benefits at some point during 2020. These forms will be sent to the address on file as of January 12th, yesterday, and all forms should be in the mail by January 31st. For anybody who wants a digital copy, the 1099-G form will be available in the online claim system, so people don't have to call or write to us. They can just access that directly through the online claim system. If somebody receives the Form 1099-G in the mail but did not apply for benefits during 2020, they should report that potential fraud to us right away by calling 1-877-668-3204 or by submitting a message through our fraud reporting form, which can be found by visiting unemployment.oregon.gov/unemployment-insurance-fraud. And as another reminder, people with language access needs can ask for free interpretation through our unemployment insurance and PUA hotlines, and can also contact us by email at oed_languageaccess@oregon.gov, or by calling the Work Systems Language Hotline, which is 503-606-6969. That Work Systems Hotline has employees who can help people file an initial or weekly claim in any language, and can also help people submit a question to the Employment Department regarding the status of their claim. I want to thank our adjudication team for their dedication in working through the 52,000 people's claims that we knew on September 30th of 2020 needed adjudication. Even with all of the new federal programs, it has not slowed down our adjudication progress. There are always new claims being filed and new issues arising that require adjudication. We're resolving these issues much more quickly now. I mentioned last week that there were then about 13,000 people whose claims needed adjudication. That included claims filed just days before, and included situations where the person had received benefits for some, or in some cases, all of the weeks they had claimed. As of yesterday, even when we look at all of the newer issues that have arisen since last week, that number is down to about 9,300. Our goal is to reach the pre-pandemic federal benchmark of completing the adjudication process within 21 days, and our team of adjudicators is working hard to reach this as quickly as we can. We're in a much better place than we were earlier in the summer or even in the fall, and we're confident that we'll be able to process claims and adjudication at a much quicker rate than we had been. To update on the payment of the waiting week payments, so far we've paid about $293 million to about 430,000 people. That's about 98% of all of the eligible people who sought benefits. We're still working through the most complicated claims that require manual work, in some cases multiple days of manual work, and have about 8,300 of those waiting week payments left to issue. From March 15th of 2020 through January 12th of this year, the Employment Department has paid out a total of about $6.8 billion in benefits. There have been regular unemployment claims totaling about 626,300 during that time frame. If we go back a year and look at the equivalent number, that was only about 114,000. With the PUA program, we have paid about $518 million in benefits to 93,500 people. Our work-share program continues to see high usage with over 1,700 businesses using work-share, and that represents coverage for close to 68,000 workers. We know that people are waiting for more information about their benefits and that some others are still waiting to be paid. And our teams are hard at work processing claims and adjudication, setting up the new programs, making changes to existing ones, being in close contact with the U.S. Department of Labor and other states to make sure we get all the information about the new programs as quickly as possible. I want to thank you for your help in sharing these updates out to the public. We want to keep everyone informed and give the best updates we can as quickly as we can. And with that, I'm happy to try to answer any questions that you may have.
Now we're opening the lines to members of the media to ask questions. As a reminder, if you're joining us by phone, be sure to hit *6 to unmute yourself. If you don't get your question answered, please email oed_communications@oregon.gov. And we will start with Lindsay Nadrich. Lindsay, are you there? Hello, Lindsay. Okay, we will move on and come back. Bill Poehler.
Yeah, hey, so David, I gotta, I'm kind of curious about the tax situation. As far as I'm not really sure how this state does it as far as withholdings go. Can you tell me what the process is for what claimants were able to do with that? Because I have a feeling there's gonna be a lot of people who don't really understand that part of it.
Sure, and that's why we've been trying to share that information. Unemployment benefits are considered taxable income under federal and state income tax laws. And we're not the experts in that, but we certainly want people to know that. And we give people the option when they file their claims of having taxes withheld out of their benefit payments. So a lot of people do have those amounts withheld, and we've already forwarded those on to the Internal Revenue Service or the Oregon Department of Revenue. Regardless of whether withholdings were made, it does get reported on people's taxes when they file their annual tax return. And that 1099-G form that we send out is something that we're required to mail out annually to record, kind of document to people how much they received in benefits each year.
So you anticipate the 1099-G, those are going to go out by the end of this month?
Correct. Okay,
so how long, that's going to have all the information that people are going to have to be able to file their taxes this year then?
Correct. That's the IRS form that we send out, and it has the information that they'll need when doing their taxes to include on the return. And I do want to highlight, sometimes people need to get a copy of the form, and we do have that available for people themselves where they can just log into the online claim system and download an electronic copy of that.
Okay, great. Thanks, David.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Bill. Tom Cusack. Tom Cusack, you could hit *6 to unmute.
Yeah, I just did that. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yeah. Thank you.
All right. I was looking back at some of the legislative hearings back in December, and there was a legislative concept that related to part-time employment. And at the time, I think there was a discussion with David that indicated there was a projected $60 million impact on the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund if that concept had gone forward. My first question has that been reduced to a specific bill yet in the legislature that you're aware of?
So I think you're probably referring to Legislative Concept 2255, which made some changes to the definition of unemployment. and
Yeah,
to how much people can earn before it starts impacting their weekly benefit amount. I know that there are ongoing discussions. But at this stage of the legislative process, bills are being formally dropped pretty quickly. So information gets out of date very quickly. As of yesterday, I hadn't seen that as a formal bill proposal, but we do anticipate there being discussions about that during the 2021 legislative session.
great. So kind of a different question. My recollection is that you said last week that there had been a provision in the new legislation that allow you to kind of escape the trigger on and trigger off feature of the unemployment program. My recollection is that the state data for unemployment is going to come out in a couple of weeks, and the current unemployment rate that's shown on your dashboard is 6%. What would that rate have to increase to before extended benefits would trigger back on?
So we currently are still in an extended benefits period. We had triggered on to extended benefits really quickly when the recession first started, when the pandemic kind of hit the economy, and then we went into the high extended benefits. So there's a couple of tiers there. We triggered off in, I believe, mid-December off of the high extended benefits, where people could no longer get 20 weeks of extended benefits. It went down to just 13 weeks. We're still in that 13-week extended benefits period. The triggers are looked at the national level. So we await kind of the national formal notice that we have either had those extended benefits turn on or turn off. Right now, we're expecting it to be a really close call as to whether we will remain on the regular extended benefits or not the next time they take that snapshot. They use a 3-month backward looking time period. So we are on the extended benefits, and we should know in a couple of weeks whether that next snapshot that they take has us continuing, or if we will, for at least a brief period of time, drop out of the extended benefits.
All right, thanks, appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Peter Wong with Pamplin Media.
Hi, David. Following up on that, Senator Ron Wyden had a national conference call this morning outlining his priorities as the incoming chair of the Senate Finance Committee, which, of course, as you know, has jurisdiction over unemployment legislation. He said his very top priority among a long list is to continue unemployment benefits beyond the scheduled March 13 expiration date and to boost the extra payments beyond $300. He didn't specify a figure, but of course, in the past, he was the author of the provision at the original $600 provision. And he did say, and I think he heard from you and the other state directors, that Congress shouldn't wait until March 13 to if they're going to extend this. However, he did say that he would like to, I don't know if this is a short-term goal or a longer-term goal, to tie these levels to economic conditions. I'm pretty sure you're aware of his proposal on that, because he's pretty much stated that for several months. He says states do deserve some stability that can be predicted through these rates. If that happens, you've said that's a kind of a more complicated proposal to implement. So should that kind of thing happen, how much lead time would you need? I realize it depends on the details, but how much lead time would you need to implement something like that? I assume it would be more than a couple of weeks.
It's a good question. We've been wrestling with these kinds of questions, I think, since the pandemic started, and it's really hard to give a concrete answer because even little details can make a big impact in how quickly we're able to implement the program. The other variable that we're working with is, well, we've been able to get large parts of the Continued Assistance Act up and running with no break at all. There's still a lot of work that our teams need to do to get benefits out to the people that are still waiting for the other parts of the Continued Assistance Act, to implement the MEUC program, And we don't yet have a solid date as to when we think all of those bodies of work will be done. So it's really hard to give an exact date. Certainly, having several weeks or even months to be able to understand the program, to hopefully get guidance from the U.S. Department of Labor well in advance of when the benefits are supposed to start being paid, so that we can build the program and implement it with that guidance already known, would be helpful. But I just can't give a time frame that we would need to be able to roll that out, because it does depend so much on the details.
Okay, fair enough. I know because he was outlining a lot of things on a lot of issues, he didn't get specific on that, other than to say that we were not going to be out of the pandemic by March 13. So I think for this week, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. So now Mike Rogoway with the Oregonian.
Thanks. No questions today.
Thank you, Mike. Kate Davidson with OPB. Kate Davidson with OPB, are you on the line? Okay, let's move on to Keaton Thomas with KATU.
Hi, David. I hope you're well. In a similar vein, I'll just piggyback off of Peter's question. I believe the Senator Wyden also mentioned trying to increase the base pay of unemployment benefits. And I wanted to see if you can tell me, is that a state decision, or does the federal government have some say in base unemployment pay?
There's a lot of flexibility at the state level for how to set the minimum and maximum weekly benefit amounts. And some states do have minimum benefit amounts that are quite low. So some people who have worked enough to have a claim but don't have a lot of earnings get a pretty small amount each week in benefits. Sometimes it's, I think some of them are $50 a week or even less than that.
And so just, is that something that like Oregon would consider increasing? I know we already have a fairly high base pay, or if the federal government were to do something, would that impact Oregon?
It really would depend on what is done at the federal level. If they're talking about setting a floor that all states have to be at, we certainly would look at that. My assumption is that Oregon is already there. It would take state legislative action, because it is state law that sets that minimum and maximum benefit amount. Oregon has a pretty robust safety net in terms of the amount of benefits available. And so it would depend on what that looked like at the federal level as to whether it required or even permitted a change at the state level.
And then the other question that I had for you is just, we are starting the session here in Oregon next week. Can you give me an idea of what sort of priorities the employment department has for the session here in Oregon, and what sort of changes that you guys might like to see?
Sure. I think one of our priorities, which isn't a direct change, but we certainly want to make sure that we're keeping the legislature informed about where the employment department is, not just with providing benefits to the people that have been waiting, not just with our modernization work that is going on and with standing up the paid family medical leave insurance program. There's also a lot of work, and there will be increasing work with helping people that are unemployed find jobs as more businesses look for workers, and helping those employers find workers so that they can ramp their businesses back up. We also want to talk a lot about what we have already changed and how we're going to continue to make changes based on what we've learned during the pandemic, and how we can organize ourselves and direct our work in a way that better helps people more quickly. In terms of policies, there are some things that we're pretty certain are going to be talked about. We do want to look at the unemployment insurance taxes. We want to make sure that we preserve that long-term solvency so that Oregon businesses don't have to bear the burden of borrowing costs or additional federal taxes. But we want to look for ways to provide some short-term relief while businesses are dealing with the repercussions of the economic downturn. We also want to look at overpayments, and we know that that's something that there's a lot of interest in terms of how those are handled in the many different circumstances that people face. And I think there's likely to be a number of bills. There was one that was mentioned earlier, looking at how some of the more technical pieces of how people get benefits when they're working part-time and they have some earnings. We've just seen a lot of new scenarios during this recession. I think there's also going to be, I hope, a look at the safety net that the unemployment insurance program provides as a whole, and how to make sure that that provides safety for as broad a cross-section of Oregon as possible.
Thank you.
Keaton. And now Dick Hughes with the Hughesums.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. My first question, and then I have a small follow-up, is, David, have you, has the employment department seen a different type of questions coming in from the public, or are these the same types of questions that people have always been having? I'm just wondering what the trend is of people trying to find more information.
So recently, we have seen an increase in the number of questions, and it's a pretty big, noticeable increase of people understandably wanting to know what these new programs mean. So some of that is just people, maybe they've already continued to get the benefits and the extra $300 payment is being made to them, but they hadn't noticed that on their Relia card. But probably the most urgent questions in the area that we're focused on getting the information, learning it as quickly as we can so we can share it as quickly as we can, is about the people who need the additional weeks of PEUC or PUA, where we were waiting on that federal guidance and we need to implement the changes before we can get the benefits. So the time period, it's only been a couple weeks since that new legislation passed, and it's great that we're very proud of being able to get so much help out to so many people with no pause at all. But again, we're in that situation where we know that for each person who hasn't yet received the new benefits, they need them, and we're anxious to get them to them. And that's driving a lot of the volume of calls that we're seeing. And we anticipate that as those other parts of the new programs are implemented, those people won't have to call us as much. And that's also why we're trying to push as much information out as we can on our website, through social media, because we know people just want to know what it means for their claim and when they can expect to see benefits.
That ties into my other question. On your website, you encourage people not to call, but read through the materials. How is that working out?
It's hard to measure how many people don't call us because they were able to find the answer, or they know that we'll be posting it as soon as we get it available. We have seen an increase in the number of people calling and contacting us using the Contact Us form on the website. We've seen quite a large increase. We try to push the information out, but again, we understand that when people are anxious to know what's going on with them when they need those benefits, that they really want an answer. We are still encouraging people to look to the website, and if they're just asking about the new programs, to hold off on calling, because there are some people who may be able to get paid now, but they have to contact us, and we want to make it as easy as possible for them to get through.